I was never meant to be the centerpiece of anyone's story, not in my pack, not in the Northern Territories, and certainly not on the night that changed my entire fate. People say every wolf has a place. If that's true, then mine must have been a shadow, silent, unnoticed, easily stepped through. My name is Era, daughter of no one important, born with no special gifts. At least, that's what I'd always been told. My pack, Thornshade, kept its hierarchies tight and its traditions tighter, and girls like me weren't considered vital assets. Especially not tonight. Are you really going to hide out here? My cousin Lyra had asked earlier, her silver dress shimmering like she'd been crafted for the goddess of moonlight herself. Yes, I'd replied, tugging at the sleeves of my plain tunic. And you should go before you miss your big debut. She'd clicked her tongue. You're wasting your life, Era. This ceremony determines everything. Status, future, mates, power. Don't you want any of it? I had shrugged then, but deep down, a familiar ache pulsed. I did want to be seen, wanted to matter, but not on a night where everyone clawed their way toward higher rank like predators fighting over scraps. Every year, the Thornshade mating ceremony turned the clearing into a glittering market of desperation. Ambitious wolves dressed in jewels, twisting themselves into shapes they believed would be considered desirable, hungry for a match that would elevate them. It was never for love. It was never for anything pure. So I ran from the noise, from the judging eyes, from the invisible weight of being unwanted. The forest welcomed me like it always did. Shadows drifted between the pines. The wind carried cool whispers of moss and cedar, and the moon spilled quiet silver over the earth. Here I could breathe. It was supposed to be a simple escape. Just one night away. Just enough time to pretend I was a nothing. But destiny has a strange way of finding the people who run from it. And mine found me in the form of a scream. At first, I thought it was an injured animal, a sharp cry carried on a torn breath. But as I got closer, the sound shaped itself into something unmistakably human. I froze. No one came this deep into the forest during a ceremony. Everyone was too busy currying favor and seeking powerful mates. Another cry, raw, desperate. My feet moved before my fear could stop them. Branches snapped under my boots as I rushed toward the sound, heart battering my ribs. The scent of blood hit me first, old, metallic, and heavy. Then I saw her. An elderly woman, tangled in a fallen snare line, her leg caught between cruel steel jaws. She was trembling, her hair white and frayed, her cloak torn by brambles. "Help, please," she rasped. I dropped to my knees. "It's okay. I'm here." She looked into my eyes, and something in her expression softened. Relief. Maybe even trust. Strange how quickly a stranger could give that. The snare was designed for wolves, not humans. It cut deep, and blood soaked the ground around her. "Who did this to you?" I asked. "Hunters," she whispered. "Or cowards. Hard to tell the difference." I gripped the trap. It burned icy cold beneath my fingers, silver-laced steel. Of course. This would have killed a wolf instantly. Most witches, too. "I'm going to open it. This will hurt," I warned. She nodded weakly. I braced myself and pulled. The mechanism groaned, resisting, but I forced my weight into it until the jaws released. She gasped as her leg came free, collapsing into my arms. "You're safe now," I murmured. Safe but bleeding out. I scanned the forest. Thornshade territory was too far. The pack wouldn't help anyway. They'd sooner accuse the woman of trespassing. I needed someone with power. Someone with authority, beyond petty pack politics. But no such person ever wandered. A twig snapped behind me. I whipped around, instincts flaring. A man stepped out from the shadows, tall and broad, dressed in dark riding leathers, moonlight catching on the silver embroidery along his coat. His presence hit like a force, quiet but heavy, controlled but dangerous. His gaze landed on me first, then the blood, then the injured woman. And something in his expression shifted sharply. "What happened?" he asked, voice low and edged with authority. Before I could answer, the old woman whispered, "Alpha King." My breath caught. Alpha King?
No.
That couldn't.
But then I saw it.
The crest on his chest, a silver wolf's head crowned with iron. Dominic Steel, the Alpha King of Silverrest, ruler of the Northern Territories. And I was kneeling in the dirt with blood on my hands.
Perfect.
For a moment, the world narrowed to only his gaze, piercing, intelligent, strangely calm given the scene before him. A lesser alpha would have barked commands or accused me of wrongdoing, but Dominic Steel studied me like I was a puzzle. "Step back," he said gently, though his voice carried the weight of command. I obeyed, without thinking. He knelt beside the wounded woman, his movements precise, practiced, as if saving lives was something he did often. He pressed cloth to her leg and murmured something under his breath, a command threaded with subtle power. The bleeding slowed. My eyes widened. "How did you?" He lifted his gaze to me.
"Not now."
"Help me lift her." We moved flawlessly, almost instinctively, a strange harmony between a king and a nobody. His strength was undeniable, but he never made me feel small. Together, we carried the woman to a fallen log. When Dominic wrapped her wound with a strip torn from his cloak, the woman clutched his arm. "She saved me," she whispered, pointing to me. "The girl." His eyes flicked to mine again. This time, they lingered. "What's your name?" he asked. "Era," I whispered. "Era," he repeated as if testing the shape of it. Something warm flickered in his expression. Approval? Curiosity? Gratitude? No one had ever looked at me that way before. When the woman was stable, he stood and faced me fully. He was taller up close, with an aura of quiet dominance that made the air thicken. "You acted with courage," he said. "Most would have left her, especially during your PAX festivities." Heat fluttered in my chest. I didn't think about the ceremony. "I know."
His voice softened.
"That's the point." He studied me again, really studied me, and I felt exposed in a way that was both terrifying and oddly comforting. Then he said something no one in Thornshade had ever said to me. "You did the right thing." By the time Dominic and I guided the wounded woman toward the edge of Thornshade territory, the forest had grown darker, the moon swallowed by drifting clouds. My arms ached, and Dominic insisted on carrying most of her weight. Even then, he kept glancing at me, checking if I was cold, tired, hurt. No one had ever done that before. As we neared the village outskirts, distant music from the mating ceremony pulsed through the trees. Laughter, flirtatious shouts, clinking goblets. A celebration I had abandoned. A celebration that would not appreciate my return. Dominic's eyes narrowed. "Your pack is still feasting." The way he said feasting made it sound like an insult. I wondered if he had ever witnessed Thornshade ceremonies. They were rarely honorable. "We should get her to the healers," I said. "They have healers?" he asked, doubt softening into something like concern. I offered a timid smile. "Not good ones." He exhaled through his nose. "Then let's hope they'll listen." When we stepped into the clearing, the music faltered. Heads turned. Whispers rose like a swarm of wasps. The alpha pair stood at the center, Alpha Rowan and Luna Mara, dressed in ceremonial crimson, their expressions twisting when they saw me. Rowan barked, "Era? Where have you?" Then he caught sight of Dominic. Everything froze. Dominic Steel carried an injured woman in his arms. I walked beside him, blood on my hands. The entire pack bowed instinctively, some stumbling, others hitting their knees so fast the ground spat dust. Except Rowan. He stared at Dominic like he couldn't decide whether to grovel or challenge him. Dominic didn't bother with introductions. "Your land is littered with illegal silver snares. Is this how Thornshade treats its borders?" Rowan's throat bobbed. We don't set those traps, Your Majesty." "That's interesting," Dominic replied calmly. "They bear your sigil." Gasps rippled through the pack. Rowan turned pale. Everyone glanced at each other. But I saw something different. Fear, denial, and shame, all tangled together. Whether Rowan truly set the snares or allowed them to exist was irrelevant. The Alpha King believed he was responsible. And in our world, perception was truth. Dominic shifted the woman in his arms. You're healers.
Now.
Yes, of course. Rowan snapped at two Omega workers.
Take her.
Quickly. They scrambled to obey, lifting the woman gently and rushing toward the healer's hut. But as soon as she was gone, Rowan rounded on me. You, he snarled. You abandoned the ceremony and brought the Alpha King here in the state? Do you have any idea what this looks? Dominic cut him off, voice dangerously soft. She saved a woman from bleeding out in your territory. You should thank her. Rowan stiffened. Lunaris forced a polite smile, but her eyes seethed. Era has always been compassionate, she said, tone dripping with condescension. But she tends to wander where she shouldn't. A habit we've tried to correct. Dominic's gaze flicked to me. Is that true? I lowered my eyes. I only went where I heard the scream. His voice gentled. Good. Then you used your instincts. That's something to cultivate, not punish. A murmur swept the pack. Punish? Cultivate? Somewhere behind me, Lyra stepped forward in her glittering silver dress, jealousy tightening her features. She missed the ceremony entirely, Your Majesty, she said sweetly, and she isn't an asset to Thornshade. Era doesn't understand responsibility. Dominic held up one hand. Silence. Complete silence. He turned to Rowan. I will be returning for the summit in 2 days. Prepare your delegation. Rowan swallowed audibly. Yes, Your Majesty. And, Dominic added, looking straight at me, I expect Era to be part of your escort. Every bone in my body went still.
Me?
With the delegation? The pack erupted in whispers. Rowan sputtered. Era? She isn't trained for court. She saved a life, Dominic said. That's qualification enough. Then he leaned closer, so close I could feel his breath flicker across my cheek. Besides, he murmured, I'd like to hear more about how she thinks. My heart slammed against my ribs. Before Rowan could argue, Dominic stepped back, lifted a hand in farewell, and shifted into a massive midnight black wolf, the largest I'd ever seen. The crowd gasped. Then he disappeared into the trees, and Thornshade turned its eyes on me. The moment Dominic was gone, the pack dissolved into accusations, pointed fingers, and swirling outrage. Some were angry that I'd embarrassed Thornshade. Others were jealous. A few looked almost proud. But Rowan? His anger simmered like an ember pressed under skin. Inside the Alpha house, he slammed the door so hard the frame rattled. You foolish girl, Rowan hissed. Do you understand the position you've put us in? The Alpha King is watching us now. Watching you. I didn't do anything wrong, I said softly. I found someone who needed help. You left the ceremony. Lunaris spat. Do you know how that makes us look? As if we can't control our own members. I wasn't aware the ceremony was mandatory. It is when the pack's future is involved, Mara snapped. Future. They meant alliances, breeding prospects, political favors. Not actual bonds. Rowan paced. If the Alpha King is suspicious of us now, every word we say at the summit will be scrutinized. And thanks to your wandering, he'll expect you to represent Thornshade. I didn't ask him to. No, Rowan barked. But he asked. And when the Alpha King commands, we obey. My chest tightened. You want me to lie low? Pretend I don't exist? Mara's lips curled. That would be ideal. A bitter laugh escaped her. But now you've been dragged into the spotlight, thanks to your need to be a hero. My throat tightened. I wasn't trying to be a hero. I was trying to be decent. And that, Mara said icily, is why you will never understand politics. The words struck deeper than I expected. Rowan finally stopped pacing. We will send you with the delegation because we must. But hear this, Era, speak only when spoken to. Keep your head down. Don't embarrass us again. I swallowed hard. Yes, Alpha. As I turned to leave, Mara added, and fix your appearance before the summit. You may be invisible here, but we will not have you shaming Thornshade in front of the other packs. Invisible. There it was again. I stepped outside, breathing in cool air, letting it fill the cracks left by their words. The moon hung low, casting pale light over the clearing. Somehow, even with humiliation burning through me, I felt stronger. Dominic's voice echoed in my memory. You did the right thing. Why did that matter more than my pack's opinions? Why did it feel like the first true acknowledgement I'd ever received? I walked toward my small cabin, unsure what tomorrow would bring. But one thing was certain. My life was no longer invisible. Something had shifted, and I could feel it rising like a storm. Morning came with gray skies and cold wind. I barely slept, replaying the events in my mind. Dominic's presence, his voice, the way his eyes lingered on me with strange intensity. I tried to shake it off. Kings didn't notice girls like me. Not truly. As I stepped outside, a young Omega boy sprinted toward me, breathless. Era, the Alpha wants you in the courtyard. Now. My stomach sank. When I reached the courtyard, Rowan, Mara, and the senior members of the delegation were gathered around a sleek silver carriage, one I'd never seen before. A carriage bearing the crest of Silverrest. My heart jumped. Standing beside it was a tall man dressed in black armor, silver trim marking him as royal guard. His expression was unreadable. He held out a sealed letter. A personal message, he announced, from His Majesty, Dominic Steel, Alpha King of Silverrest. The air in the courtyard vanished. Rowan stiffened. Mara went rigid. The guard turned to me. Lady Era, he requests your immediate presence.
Lady?
I almost looked behind me to see if he meant someone else. I took the letter with trembling fingers. The seal broke with a soft crack. Inside, written in clean, sharp handwriting. Era, I ask you to accompany me to Silverrest ahead of your PAX delegation. The summit preparations require your insight, and the woman you saved is recovering under our care.
She asked for you.
If you are willing, my guard will escort you directly to the fortress. Dominic Steel. My breath caught. The pack erupted in whispers. Rowan's voice thundered over them. Era cannot leave without my approval. The royal guard looked at him flatly. The Alpha King did not ask for yours. Mara's face twisted. She is a thorn-shade wolf. We must. The Alpha King extends an invitation. The guard cut in. Refusal is unwise. Rowan visibly paled. I looked at the carriage. At the guard. At the sky that felt suddenly too wide, too full of possibilities and danger. Era, Rowan said stiffly. Tell him you decline. The summit is soon. You must stay. But when I met his eyes, something inside me broke free. Something small and quiet that had been caged for so long it barely recognized freedom. I turned to the guard. I'll go. A collective gasp rippled across the courtyard. Rowan stepped forward. Era, think. I am thinking, I said, surprised by the strength in my voice. This might be the first decision I'm allowed to make for myself.
Silence.
The guard nodded respectfully and opened the carriage door. Then come, Lady Era. My heart pounded as I stepped inside. As the carriage rolled forward, leaving Thornshade shrinking behind me, I felt equal parts terror and exhilaration. I didn't know what awaited me in Silverrest. But I knew one thing. My life was no longer dictated by a pack that never saw me. It was pulling me toward something bigger, toward someone who already had. The carriage moved faster than I expected, gliding over the forest path as if the wheels barely touched the ground. Even the air felt different, crisper, sharper, filled with the hum of lands that didn't belong to Thornshade. Lands ruled by someone far more powerful. For hours, the trees shifted from familiar pines to towering oaks draped in silver moss. Birds I'd never heard before cried overhead, their songs haunting and beautiful. Every so often, the royal guard riding beside the carriage glanced inside to ensure I was okay. I wasn't sure if I was. My hands were cold, my chest tight. Each mile we traveled only deepened the realization. I was leaving my pack. I wasn't banished. I wasn't escaping. But I wasn't staying. Somewhere deep inside, that truth loosened something I didn't know had been clenched my whole life. As dusk bled across the sky, we reached a clearing overlooking a vast valley. The guard tapped the ceiling of the carriage. "We're here." I stepped out, breath stolen from my lungs. In the distance rose a fortress carved into the mountainside, tall, pale stone towers crowned with silver banners that rippled in the wind. The main palace sat like a wolf watching over its territory, elegant and formidable. Silverrest, home of the Alpha King. The carriage followed a winding path toward the fortress gate, flanked by statues of wolves forged from shimmering metal. Every part of this place radiated power, not just physical strength but something deeper, something ancient. The guard nodded toward the entrance. "You'll be presented to His Majesty shortly." Presented? As if I were important enough to be presented at all. Inside, the fortress buzzed with activity. Warriors in polished armor, servants carrying scrolls and supplies, courtiers dressed in royal blues and blacks. People glanced at me curiously, whispering, trying to piece together who I might be. An Omega woman greeted me with a warm smile. "Welcome to Silverrest, Lady Era. I'll take you to your guest chambers." I followed her up a winding staircase lit by floating crystal lanterns. The hallways were wide and grand, but somehow comforting. When she opened the door to my room, I stopped dead. It was gorgeous. A canopy bed draped with silk. A balcony overlooking the valley. A bath steaming lightly in the corner. Bookshelves, a hearth, plush rugs. It was more luxury than I'd seen in my entire life. "This is for me?" I whispered. "Of course," she said. His Majesty insisted. Heat crawled up my neck. "Dominic thought of this? For me?" Before I could overthink it, she added, "He also requested that you join him for dinner once you've rested." My heart fluttered. Dinner? With the Alpha King? Suddenly, I wasn't sure if I wanted to faint or run. By the time I reached the dining hall, my hands wouldn't stop trembling. I'd washed up, braided my hair, and changed into the simple but elegant dress provided in my wardrobe, a soft blue that made me feel strangely seen. The guards at the door bowed as they let me in. The hall was enormous, though mostly empty. A long table stretched across the center, set with polished silverware and flickering candles. Dominic stood near the hearth speaking quietly with a few advisors. He wore dark clothes again, though tonight he'd removed his armor. He looked approachable. Almost. When he saw me, his expression shifted, softening in a way I wasn't prepared for. He excused himself and crossed the room with smooth, confident strides. "Era," he greeted, voice warm. "I'm glad you came." "I was invited. I managed." He smiled slightly. "You make it sound like I dragged you here." "You kind of did," I blurted before I could stop myself. He laughed, an actual, genuine laugh that surprised both of us. "I suppose that's true," he said. "Sit. Please." We took 2 seats near the center of the table. Servants brought plates of roasted meat, vegetables seasoned with herbs I didn't recognize, warm bread that smelled like honey. But I hardly tasted any of it. My attention kept flicking to Dominic, his easy posture, the way his eyes tracked every movement around us, the calm confidence rolling off him in waves. "You must have questions," he said eventually. "A few," I admitted. "Like, why am I here?" "Really?" He leaned back, fingertips brushing the stem of his wine glass. "Because you did something most wolves wouldn't." "I just helped someone." "Yes," he said softly. "You helped someone who could offer you nothing. That kind of integrity is rare." I swallowed. Compliments still felt foreign. "And," he continued, "the woman you saved asked for you the moment she woke." My heart jumped. "She did." Dominic nodded. "She's stable. Healing well. I'll take you to see her tomorrow." Relief washed through me slowly. "Thank you," I whispered. He studied me a long moment, not as a king appraising a subject, but as a man trying to understand a mystery. "Tell me something, Era," he said. "Why does your pack treat you as if you're a burden?" The question pierced me. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Maybe because I don't fit their expectations. I wasn't born with a special skill or a strong bloodline. I'm quiet. I don't fight for attention." "Should you have to?" he asked gently. I looked down at my hands. "In thorn shade?" "Yes." Silence hung between us, soft, thoughtful, charged. Dominic's jaw tightened. A pack that fails to see value in its members is a weak pack. I blinked, startled by the sharpness of his tone. He rested his elbows on the table. Here in Silverrest, worth is not determined by rank. It's determined by character, by choices. I swallowed hard. That's different from what I'm used to. I know. His expression softened. But I meant what I wrote in my letter. I believe your insight and honesty may be important at the summit. My insight, I echoed. You saw things clearly in the forest. You acted decisively. You trusted your instincts. Those qualities matter more than your pack taught you. Warmth spread through me, slow, dangerous, intoxicating. Dominic Steel believed in me, maybe more than I believed in myself. Halfway through dinner, he asked about my childhood, my interests, my dreams. No one had ever asked me about my dreams. And I found myself really talking. We spoke until the candles burned low and the advisors returned with urgent matters. Dominic stood reluctantly.
I'm needed elsewhere, he said.
But, Era? Yes. I'm glad you're here. My breath caught. Then he bowed, an Alpha King bowing to me, and left with his advisors trailing behind him. I sat at the empty table long after he was gone, heart thudding with a rhythm I didn't want to name. Because I knew one terrifying, undeniable truth.
I was drawn to him, and I didn't know what that meant.
The next morning, Silverrest was already buzzing with energy. Servants rushed through the halls carrying documents, crates of rare herbs, weapons polished for the summit. The fortress felt alive, like a great beast waking. My first stop was the healer's wing to see the woman I'd rescued. She rested in a soft bed, her leg wrapped neatly. Her eyes lit up when she saw me. You came, she whispered. Of course I did, I said, squeezing her hand. She studied me with an intensity that unsettled and comforted me all at once. You have a kind heart, she murmured. A rare thing in these times. I'm just doing what anyone would. No, her grip tightened. Not anyone. Before I could respond, a soft knock came at the door. A tall woman stepped inside, slender, elegant, wearing the dark uniform of the King's Council. Her hair was braided tightly, her eyes sharp and assessing. You must be Era, she said. I am. I'm Counselor Illyra. His Majesty has ensured you have full access to the council chambers should you need anything. The way she said it made my stomach twist slightly, respectful, but guarded. As if she didn't trust me. Or didn't approve. Once she left, the woman in the bed sighed. Court wolves. Always circling, always watching. Why would they watch me? Because the king is watching you, she said simply. Heat crept into my cheeks. It's not like that. Her smile was wise and knowing. Maybe not yet. When I left the healer's wing, whispers followed me down the corridor. That's her, the girl from Thornshade. She arrived alone. Unescorted. Did you see His Majesty walk with her last night? She must be important. Or dangerous, some whispered. I pretended not to hear. But the attention made my skin prickle. I'd never been noticed before. Not truly. Now every pair of eyes tracked me with curiosity, suspicion, or something like calculation. In the courtyard, warriors practiced combat drills. I lingered at the edge, watching their swift movements. One of them, broad-shouldered, dark-haired, with a scar across his jaw, noticed me. He approached slowly. You're Thornshade, he said. Is that a problem? He shrugged. Not for me. But some wolves here are wondering why His Majesty is so interested in you. The bluntness stunned me. He's not. He's just grateful I helped someone. Maybe. His expression remained unreadable. Or maybe he sees something in you. The way he said it made something flutter in my stomach. Before I could reply, a horn sounded across the courtyard, low and powerful. The warrior straightened. Summit preparations begin today. You should stay close. Politics can be dangerous. Dangerous. The word echoed in my mind. And as I made my way back to my chambers, I felt it in the air, an undercurrent beneath the beauty of Silverrest. A tension coiled tight. A shifting of alliances. Something was happening at this fortress. Something big. And somehow, I was becoming part of it. The summit preparations intensified over the next 2 days. Delegations arrived from across the northern territories, packs from the mountains, the coast, even distant desert clans. Silverrest grew louder, fuller, more dangerous. I stayed mostly in the courtyard or the library, where Dominic had arranged a small reading nook for me. Every so often, I felt eyes following me, some curious, some calculating. But one gaze unsettled me more than the rest. Counselor Illyra. She watched me constantly, across corridors, at meals, in the library. Always silent, always composed, always assessing. I tried to ignore it. Until she confronted me. It happened in a narrow hallway lined with tall windows. I had been studying maps of the Allied territories when Illyra stepped into my path. "You're becoming quite the topic at court," she said coolly. "I didn't mean to," I replied. "That's the problem," she said, lowering her voice. "Unintentional influence is the most dangerous kind." I stiffened. "I'm not trying to influence anyone. Yet His Majesty looks at you as if you hold answers no one else can give." Heat crawled on my neck. "We barely know each other." "Sometimes that's all it takes," she said. "The court is already whispering. Wolves are questioning your purpose here." "My purpose," I echoed, "is to attend the summit." She moved closer, gaze sharp. "If you want to survive this court era, you must be careful. Powerful wolves attract enemies, and anyone close to the Alpha King becomes a target." The threat wasn't subtle. Before I could respond, she turned and walked away. My heartbeat hammered against my ribs as I leaned against the wall. Was I really in danger just for being near Dominic? That night, I tried to sleep, but unease shadowed every thought. When I finally drifted off, it was only to wake abruptly at a sound outside my door. A quiet scrape. A shadow moved beneath the crack of the door. My pulse raced. I slipped out of bed and inched closer. Another scrape, metal on stone.
Someone was trying to pick the lock.
I froze. Before fear could consume me, footsteps thundered down the hall. A voice, deep, commanding, snapped like a blade. "Step away from that door."
"Dominic."
The shadow fled instantly, disappearing down the corridor with inhuman speed. Dominic reached my door and knocked once. "Era? Are you unharmed?" I opened it, breath shaking. Someone was trying to get in. His jaw tightened, eyes burning with fury. "I know. You knew." He exhaled slowly, trying to calm himself. "A scout reported unusual movement near your chambers. I came immediately." Fear trembled up my spine. Why would anyone target me? Dominic stepped inside, closing the door behind him. His presence filled the room, steadying but intense. "Because you're connected to me," he said quietly. "And because the summit threatens to expose old grudges." I swallowed hard. "You think it was an assassin?" His gaze darkened. "I think someone wants to send a message." My stomach churned. "What message?" "That you're vulnerable." I shivered. "What do I do?" His voice softened, warm and unwavering. "You don't do anything. I will protect you." The sincerity in his words wrapped around my fear, quieting it. Dominic stepped closer, close enough for a scent to surround me, pine and steel and something darker. "Era," he said, voice low, "I won't allow anyone to harm you." My breath caught. Something heavy and unspoken passed between us, something more than duty, more than gratitude. Before I could answer, a guard appeared at the door. "Your Majesty," he said breathlessly, "the Thornshade delegation has arrived." The blood drained from my face. "Thornshade? Here.
Now."
Dominic nodded, jaw hardening. "Keep Era under protection. No one enters this wing without my approval." The guard bowed. Dominic looked at me one last time, eyes full of something protective, conflicted, and intense. "We'll speak soon," he whispered. Thornshade's arrival cast a shadow and the room felt darker when he was gone. I felt it before I saw anyone. The shift in the air, the tightness in my chest, the prickling sensation of old wounds resurfacing. Kalen escorted me through a side corridor so I could watch from above as the delegations filed into the main hall. The sight twisted something deep inside me. Alpha Rowan stood at the front, face tight with forced politeness. Luna Mara glided beside him, lips curved in a brittle smile. Behind them was Lyra, my cousin, dressed in a delicate gown clearly chosen to impress the court. Her eyes scanned the hall until they found Dominic standing near his advisors. Her expression warmed instantly, too eagerly. Kalen whispered, "Your pack seems eager to be seen." I swallowed. It's all they care about. When Dominic stepped forward to greet Rowan, I braced myself. Rowan bowed deeply. "Your Majesty," he said. "Thank you for hosting Thornshade." Dominic's reply was cool. "I trust your journey was uneventful." Rowan smiled tightly. "Of course." But the moment Dominic turned, Rowan's eyes flickered toward the upper balcony, toward me. And they hardened. Lyra caught my gaze next. Her lips curved in surprise, then irritation. She whispered something to Mara, who turned and shot me a pointed glare. Kalen noticed. "They don't seem happy you came early. They didn't want me to come at all." He frowned. "Why?" I let out a slow breath. "Because I don't fit the image Thornshade wants to show the world." Kalen's jaw flexed. "Then they're fools." Before I could respond, a voice echoed across the hall. "Lady Era of Thornshade." My heart stopped. Dominic. He stood beside the throne dais, addressing the entire hall. Every head turned upward, including Rowan's, including Lyra's. Kalen stiffened. "Looks like you're being summoned." I can't go down there," I whispered. "Not in front of them." But Dominic's gaze stayed locked on me, steady, patient, devastating. "Era," he said again, more softly this time, but the whole room heard it. Kalen touched my shoulder. "You don't have to fear them anymore." I wish I believed that. But my legs moved on their own. Slowly, I descended the staircase, the hall parting around me like shadows giving way to moonlight. Thornshade stared, shocked, angry, confused. Dominic stepped toward me, offering his hand. "Era," he said, voice low for me alone. "I want you by my side during the opening session." My breath hitched. "But why me?" "Because you see what others overlook," he murmured. "And because I trust you." Trust. The word wrapped around me, warm and fragile. When I placed my hand in his, the hall erupted in whispers. Rowan stiffened. Lyra's jealousy burned like a flame. But for the first time in my life, I didn't shrink. I stood beside Dominic Steel, Alpha King of Silverrest. And I was not invisible. Not anymore. The main hall was impossibly vast. High vaulted ceilings arched overhead like the ribcage of an ancient beast, banners from every allied territory hanging in sharp, colorful waves. The air thrummed with tension as wolves from across the realm gathered, some whispering, some glaring, all waiting to see what the Alpha King would do next. And I was standing beside him. My hand rested lightly in Dominic's as he led me to the raised dais. His grip wasn't tight, wasn't possessive, just steady, grounding. Still, the weight of countless eyes pressed down on me like a second gravity. Rowan muttered something bitter under his breath. Lyra actually looked as if she might faint from a mixture of rage and disbelief. Dominic motioned for me to stand just behind his right shoulder. I obeyed, pulse slamming against my ribs. Then he stepped forward, voice rising through the hall with a power that demanded silence. "Welcome," he said, "to Silverrest and to the annual summit of the Northern Territories." Instantly the room obeyed, quieting into reverent stillness. Dominic continued, speaking of alliances, resources, border conflicts, rogue sightings, and the growing unease beyond the mountains. But beneath his calm authority, I sensed tension, coiled, alert, aware of every shift in the room. At one point, he lifted a hand slightly, and I stepped closer to see the documents spread across the table in front of him. He didn't need to say anything. He simply wanted me near. That shouldn't have meant as much as it did, and yet my heart wouldn't listen. Partway through the session, Counselor Illyra approached Dominic with a series of coded reports. Her gaze flicked from him to me, then back to him again. Something sharp glinted behind her eyes. When Dominic finished his opening remarks, Rowan of Thornshade stepped forward. "Your Majesty," Rowan said, bowing stiffly. "Thornshade is honored to be here." Dominic nodded, but did not smile. "And Silverrest acknowledges your presence." "Only that. Nothing more." Rowan didn't like it. He straightened, voice growing louder. "We have brought a delegation of our finest." Lyra stepped forward, chin lifted proudly. She was dressed in shimmering emerald fabric, clearly hoping to catch attention. Dominic did not spare her a glance. Instead, he turned toward me. "Era," he murmured, "would you retrieve the treaty map?" My breath caught. "Emmy?" "Yes." His eyes softened almost imperceptibly. "You know where it is." I did. He had shown me the archives earlier. But I also knew what he was doing. He was telling everyone, without saying it aloud, that I had access to places in Silverrest that most guests, even nobles, did not. That I was trusted. I walked with purposeful steps, the hall parting before me like a river splitting around a stone. When I returned and handed Dominic the map, Rowan's jaw tightened. Lyra's smile flickered into something poisonous. Dominic nodded to me, gratitude in his eyes. And as I stepped back to my place behind him, a realization bloomed in my chest. This was no longer about simply attending a summit. My presence had already shifted something in this court, something that frightened my old pack and intrigued this new world. And the truth was, I didn't feel powerless anymore. The session ended hours later with heated debates, tense agreements, and several counselors ready to tear each other apart. When the hall finally cleared, I remained on the dais while Dominic dismissed the guards with a quiet wave. When we were alone, he turned to me. "Era." The way he said my name, soft, deliberate, made my breath catch. "You handled yourself well," he continued. "More than well. You were calm under scrutiny, composed under pressure. And you didn't let Thornshade's reactions shake you." I tucked a stray curl behind my ear, unable to meet his gaze. I felt like I was shaking the whole time. "Maybe," he said, stepping closer, "but you didn't show it." I felt heat rise in my cheeks. "Dominic, why did you call me to stand with you?" In front of everyone. He studied me for a long moment, eyes searching mine. "Because you don't shrink," he said. "Not when it matters. Not when others would hide." "I almost hid," I whispered. "But you didn't," he countered, voice firmer now. "And that is why I wanted you there." My heart thudded hard. People are going to misunderstand. They already have. His jaw tightened. "Let them. Their assumptions don't concern me." "But they concern me," I said, the truth slipping before I could stop it. "I don't want to make enemies here." "You're not," he said. "You're revealing them." His words sent a shiver through me. Dominic moved closer still, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to hold his gaze. His presence wrapped around me, warm and overwhelming, but not frightening. Never frightening. "Era," he said quietly, "you have more bravery in you than you realize." I swallowed. "I'm not brave." "Yes," he whispered, "you are. When everyone else in that hall saw pressure, you saw responsibility. When others saw rank, you saw people. I watched you. I always do." The admission stole my breath. My voice came out barely audible. "Dominic." His eyes softened, just a fraction. "You don't need to fear Thornshade anymore. You don't need to fear anyone." "But someone tried to break into my chambers," I reminded him. His expression darkened instantly. Feral, protectively furious. "That," he said slowly, "will be dealt with. Whoever targeted you made the worst mistake of their life." My pulse fluttered. Before I could say another word, Counselor Illyra entered the hall, clearing her throat deliberately. "Forgive the interruption," she said, though her tone lacked apology. "Your Majesty, we require your presence for the territorial delegation review." Dominic took a breath, regaining composure. "Of course." But then he turned back to me. "We'll continue this later," he murmured. My heart took flight. He walked away, but just before reaching Illyra, He paused. He didn't look back, but the words were meant for me alone. You're under my protection, Era. Always. I stood frozen long after he and Illyra disappeared behind the great doors. Because something in his voice told me he meant much more than he said. That evening, Silverrest hosted a formal dinner for the delegations, long tables, gem-studded chandeliers, and enough polished silver to blind someone. I dreaded it. Kaelin escorted me, though he muttered under his breath about his dislike for formal events. You'll be fine, he assured me. Stick near me or the king. But that was exactly the problem. The moment I entered the dining hall, Thornshade's attention snapped toward me like wolves scenting fresh prey. Lyra approached first, moving with a calculated grace. Era, she said sweetly, though her eyes were icy. We didn't know you'd made such an impression here. I forced a polite smile. I wasn't trying to. Oh, I'm sure, she said. But you know how wolves talk. And the king certainly gave them reason today. Kaelin stepped subtly closer to me, posture straightening. Lyra's smile tightened when she noticed. Before she could deliver another thinly veiled insult, Rowan joined her. Era, he said, tone stiff. I see Silverrest has welcomed you warmly. His emphasis made his meaning clear. I straightened. They've been kind. Far kinder than some places I've known. Rowan's eyes narrowed. Mara appeared beside him, slipping in with her usual manufactured grace. Well, Mara said smoothly, we're simply glad you haven't embarrassed Thornshade today. My breath stilled. Kaelin let out a low, dangerous growl. Careful, Thornshade, he warned. You're in Silverrest now. Mara's smile sharpened. And yet she is still one of ours. Not anymore, Kaelin snapped. I blinked in shock. Kaelin. He didn't take his eyes off Mara. She stands with Silverrest's Alpha King. You would do well to respect that. Everything froze. Conversation around us dimmed as wolves glanced our way. Rowan stiffened. Lyra's face paled with fury. Mara swallowed hard. As for me, I felt something shift deep inside my chest, something like a thread snapping, something like a cage door opening. I whispered, voice soft but firm. I stand where I choose. All three Thornshade wolves turned to me in disbelief. But I didn't back down. Dominic's voice cut through the hall, rich and commanding. Era. I turned. He stood beside an empty seat, his seat, gesturing for me to join him. The entire room watched as I crossed the floor toward him. Dominic held out the chair for me himself. When I sat, he leaned close, his voice low enough that only I could hear it. You don't need to endure them anymore. Emotion tightened my throat. I know.
His gaze softened.
And you don't stand with them anymore. Not in my hall. Not anywhere. I swallowed hard. Then where do I stand? He didn't hesitate. With me. My heart slammed against my ribs. Dominic settled in the seat beside me, his presence warm and steady. And for the first time in my life, I believed him. I believed I finally belonged somewhere. Somewhere real. Somewhere safe. Somewhere I was seen. And the night was only beginning. The dinner stretched on, full of forced smiles and political tension sharp enough to slice skin. Dominic spoke calmly with several visiting alphas, but every few minutes, his gaze drifted back to me, checking, watching, ensuring I was all right. His attention soothed something aching deep in my chest. Yet even with him beside me, I felt the shift in the room. The whispering currents of suspicion and envy, the undercurrent of danger that had been growing since the summit began. When dessert was served, Dominic rose from his seat. Walk with me, he murmured. I followed him out of the hall and into one of Silverrest's long stone corridors, the low torchlight painting shadows across the walls. He walked in silence at first, his expression unreadable. Only when we reached a quiet balcony overlooking the moonlit valley did he stop. I wrapped my arms around myself against the cold. Dominic leaned against the railing, studying the distant mountains before his eyes moved to me. What happened with Thornshade at dinner? He asked softly. I hesitated. Thake spoke to me. His jaw tightened. I saw Mara's expression. I didn't like it. She made her usual comments, I admitted. The kind meant to look like concern, but really just meant to put me down. "And you?" he asked gently. "How did you feel?" I looked at him, at the man who had shown me more respect in a single week than my pack had in years. "I felt done," I whispered. "Done trying to fit into their world. Done trying to make myself small for people who preferred me invisible." Dominic's eyes softened with something warm and fierce. "Good." My breath caught. "Good." "Yes," he said, straightening. "Because you were never meant to be small." His voice carried a quiet conviction that made my pulse flutter. But before I could speak, a chill prickled the back of my neck. A presence, wrong, watchful, lurking near the corridor behind us. Dominic sensed it too. He stepped in front of me instinctively, posture shifting into something deadly. "Show yourself." Silence. Then, a low growl from the shadows. A figure emerged, hooded and cloaked, their movements too smooth, too silent to be anything but a trained assassin. Dominic's voice dropped, lethal. "You made a mistake coming here." The figure lunged. Everything happened in a blur. Dominic blocked the first strike, sweeping the attacker's legs out from under them with terrifying speed. They hit the stone floor hard, but rolled immediately, pulling something glinting from their sleeve. A curved blade, dark metal, wickedly sharp. The moment I saw it, my blood ran cold. That blade was coated with wolfsbane. Dominic didn't flinch. He stepped forward, dodging the slash with fluid precision before pinning the figure to the ground. His teeth bared, his voice a low growl vibrating with fury. "Who sent you?" The assassin spat something in a language I didn't understand, then wrenched free and leapt over the balcony railing, dropping 3 stories but landing like a creature with broken bones that healed instantly. They vanished into the darkness. Dominic cursed softly under his breath. I gripped the railing, heart racing. "That was an elite mercenary," he said grimly. "Highly trained."
"And they weren't after me."
My stomach twisted. "They were after me." He turned to face me fully, eyes burning with barely contained anger. "You are now a target. Someone wants you gone. And tonight made that clear." Fear clawed at my ribs. "But why?" I whispered. "I have no power. I'm not important." Dominic shook his head slowly, firmly. "Era, someone believes you are." I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "From this moment on, you will not walk anywhere alone. You will remain in protected wings. And I'll double the guard on your chambers." "Dominic." He cupped my face gently, forcing my eyes to meet his. "I will not lose you." The breath left my lungs. His voice dropped, barely a whisper. "You matter more than you understand." And for the first time, I felt the full weight of it. Whatever was happening, I was at the center of it, whether I wanted to be or not. Chapter 17. The King's Secret Council. The next morning, Silverrest was no longer the same fortress I had come to know. Guards lined every hallway. Scouts rushed in and out of the war room. The air buzzed with urgency, the kind that only comes when a hidden threat finally reveals itself. Dominic summoned me to a private chamber deep within the fortress, a war council room lit by a circular skylight. When I entered, several high-ranking wolves were already gathered. Kalen, Counselor Illyra, 3 territorial generals, and Dominic, standing at the head of the table. All eyes shifted to me. Dominic straightened. "Era, come." I obeyed, though my breath trembled. He motioned for me to stand next to him, not behind him, not at the door, beside him. Equal in proximity to power. Counselor Illyra's expression tightened. Dominic addressed the room. "Last night, an assassin infiltrated the palace grounds with wolfsbane-coated steel. Their target was Era." A murmur rippled through the council. Illyra stepped forward. "With respect, why would anyone target her?" Dominic didn't miss a beat. "Because someone believes she holds value to me." Silence grew heavy. Kalen studied me thoughtfully, then nodded, as if something made sense. Illyra, however, frowned. "Your Majesty, her presence here has already caused tension. Thornshade is offended. Other delegations are confused." Dominic cut her off sharply. I do not make my decisions based on who is offended. A flicker of irritation crossed her features. He continued, tone colder. Era is under my personal protection, and whoever sent that assassin must be identified and dealt with. I swallowed hard. Dominic, I don't want anyone hurt because of me. He turned to me, eyes softer. You didn't cause this. They did. I felt small under the weight of so many eyes, but strangely, I also felt stronger. Dominic rested his hand lightly on the table. There are 3 likely sources for this attack, he said. A rival pack, a rogue faction, or someone inside the summit trying to destabilize Silverrest. Someone inside? I whispered. Yes, he said grimly. Kalen stepped forward. If their goal is to weaken you, Your Majesty, targeting someone under your protection would certainly do it. Exactly, Dominic replied. Then he looked at me. Which is why I need to know something important. My chest tightened. What is it? Era, has anyone from Thornshade shown unusual interest in your whereabouts? Any questions about your time here? Anything suspicious at all? His tone wasn't accusing, just intent. I forced myself to think through the past days. Every look, every conversation. Then something clicked. I looked up sharply. Yes. The room stilled. Who? Dominic asked. I hesitated, but the truth demanded to be spoken. Counselor Mara. Kalen cursed. Illyra stiffened. Dominic's eyes darkened. I swallowed. She asked where I was staying.
Who was guarding me?
She seemed frustrated that I wasn't near Thornshade's quarters. Dominic's voice dropped to a lethal whisper. That's enough to start. I looked between the council members. Do you really think she'd try to harm me? Kalen answered first. If Thornshade thought you were a threat to their standing with the king? Absolutely. Dominic's jaw clenched. We'll investigate discreetly. But Era, from this moment forward, you stay close. My breath trembled. Close to who? He stepped toward me. Close to me. A hush fell over the council, but Dominic didn't seem to care. This war is no longer just political, he said quietly. It's personal. A chill ran through my spine, because for the first time I understood. This wasn't simply about Thornshade, or the summit, or politics. Something larger was unfolding. Dangerous, calculating, and deeply rooted. And I had become a piece on the board. A piece someone wanted removed. By afternoon, I was escorted everywhere by 2 Silverrest guards. It felt both absurd and frightening. Absurd because I was hardly anyone important, and frightening because someone out there believed I was important enough to kill. I returned to my room briefly, only to find a note left on my pillow. A strange note. Short. Unsettling. You should have stayed invisible. My breath hitched. The guards found no one nearby. Dominic was furious when he saw it. He arrived at my chambers within minutes, storming through the door with a feral look in his eyes. The guards stepped aside instantly. Where is it? He demanded. I handed him the note, my fingers trembling. He read it once, then again, jaw clenching tighter each time. This is a warning, he growled. Or a taunt. I swallowed hard. Dominic, what if this is because of you? It is because of me, he said, voice raw with anger. But don't mistake that for regret. He paced once, trying to rein in his emotions before turning back to me. You didn't ask for any of this, he said softly. You didn't seek attention or position. You showed compassion, integrity, strength, and that threatens people who only understand power as dominance. I looked down. I never meant to be a problem. You're not, he said firmly. You're the opposite. My chest tightened at the intensity in his voice. Era, he continued quietly, the night we found that woman in the woods, you didn't know who I was. You didn't care about rank or alliances. You acted because it was right. He stepped closer. That moment changed more than you realize. My breath stopped. Dominic exhaled slowly, as if holding back a truth fighting to escape. I saw you, he murmured. Before I knew your name.
Before I knew anything.
I saw you. His words were so soft they almost broke me. My voice trembled. Dominic, what are you saying? He closed the distance between us, his presence warm, overwhelming, protective. That whoever is threatening you, he said, will go through me first. The unspoken meaning hung heavy in the air. Not duty, not politics, not obligation. You matter to me. He didn't say those words aloud, but I heard them all the same. Sleep refused to come. After the note appeared on my pillow, after Dominic left with a promise to increase security, after the guards took positions outside my door, sleep was the last thing I could find. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling beams, my mind churning. Someone wanted me gone.
Dead even. Why?
I wasn't a political threat. I wasn't a warrior. I wasn't even a ranked wolf. Unless my presence beside Dominic was enough to threaten someone else's ambitions. The more I thought about it, the more it made an awful, chilling kind of sense. I rolled onto my side and pressed my fingers to my temple. Too many questions, not enough answers. A soft knock broke through my spiraling thoughts. Era, a gentle voice called. It's Kalen. I sat up quickly. Come in. Kalen stepped inside, closing the door behind him. His expression was unusually serious. You okay? He asked. I hesitated. I don't know. He nodded, pulling a chair to sit across from me. That's fair. Tonight wasn't exactly peaceful. I keep replaying everything, I admitted. What Mara said. What Thornshade wants. The assassin. The note. All of it. Kalen leaned his elbows on his knees. You're caught in something big. Bigger than you realize. I don't want to be. I know. But that doesn't change the fact that you are. His honesty made my chest tighten. Kalen sighed. Listen, people have underestimated you your whole life, haven't they? I blinked slowly. Yes. Well, he said lightly, we don't. I felt something bloom in my chest, small, bright, and unfamiliar. Confidence. Still, worry gnawed at me. Do you think Thornshade is behind the attack? Kalen's jaw flexed. I think someone there is involved. I swallowed. Mara? He didn't deny it. Rowan. I whispered, the idea twisting painfully in my gut.
Possibly, he said.
But Dominic will find out. A strange warmth spread through me at the mention of Dominic's name. Then I remembered the way he had looked at me earlier. The worry, the fury, the intensity in his gaze. Kalen watched my expression shift and smirked faintly. You care about him. Heat rushed to my cheeks. Kalen. You do, he said, not unkindly. It's written all over your face. I looked down. I don't mean to. No one ever means to, he said softly. But caring doesn't make you weak. It makes you dangerous. I lifted my head. Dangerous? He nodded. Because now anyone who wants to hurt Dominic has to worry about hurting you. And anyone who wants to hurt you has to worry about Dominic. I exhaled shakily. You make it sound like a war. Kalen's expression sobered. Era, it is a war. You're just finally seeing the battlefield. I wrapped my arms around myself, unsure whether I felt comforted or terrified. Get some rest, Kalen murmured. Tomorrow is going to be intense. He left quietly, and the room fell into silence again. This time, when sleep finally found me, it came in pieces, fragile and thin, like something that could shatter with the slightest breath. And when morning light crept through my window, I knew something inside me had changed. I wasn't the same Era who entered Silverrest. I couldn't be. Morning in Silverrest sounded different. Usually I woke to birdsong, or the quiet hum of the fortress waking up. But today, murmurs drifted through the corridors, fast, sharp, urgent. News had spread. The attempted assassination was no longer a secret. When I stepped out of my room, escorted by 2 guards, every wolf we passed paused to stare. Some with concern, some with interest, some with suspicion, but none with contempt. Not like Thornshade. As we entered the great hall for breakfast, the whispers grew louder. That's her, the girl the assassin targeted. Why her? The king was furious? My pulse quickened. Then, as if his presence were a shield materializing around me, Dominic appeared near the front of the hall. His eyes locked onto mine instantly. He crossed the room with quiet purpose. The hall fell silent. Era, he said, his voice warming as he reached me. Come sit. He didn't just gesture to any seat, he guided me toward the place at his right, directly beside him. The highest seat anyone could hold without ruling a kingdom. My breath caught. Dominic pulled out the chair for me, ignoring the stunned expressions surrounding us. When I sat, he watched me with a faint, reassuring smile. Did you sleep? He asked softly. Barely, I admitted. His jaw tightened. I'm sorry. That shouldn't be your reality here. I'm still safe, I whispered. Safer than I've been in years. His gaze softened. Good. 2 council members approached, bowing. Your Majesty, if we may. Dominic lifted a hand, dismissing them with quiet authority. Not yet. After she eats. The hall went quiet again. Heat flared in my cheeks. You don't need to. Era, he said gently. You are not an interruption. I stared down at my hands, words lost somewhere between my chest and my throat. Dominic reached out, brushing his fingers against the back of my hand beneath the table, so lightly I almost wondered if I imagined it. But I felt it. My heartbeat stuttered. After breakfast, 2 guards approached Dominic with a sealed scroll. Your Majesty, the Thornshade Council requests a private audience. Dominic's expression turned cold. Deny it. The guards bowed and left. I blinked. You're refusing them? They don't want a conversation, he said. They want leverage. I hesitated. And what do you want? His eyes found mine. The truth. Silence stretched between us, thick, charged, unspoken. Then Dominic did something unexpected. He extended his hand to me. Era, he said quietly, walk with me. My heart tripped over itself. I placed my hand in his. His fingers curled warmly around mine. We walked out of the hall together, the entire court watching. And not a single one dared whisper. Dominic led me through one of the inner courtyards, quiet, filled with silverleaf trees and a small reflecting pool. The air was crisp, smelling of frost and pine. He didn't release my hand. Not until we reached the stone bench near the water. Then he slowly turned to face me, his expression unreadable but intense. Era, he said, voice low, I need to tell you something. And I need you to hear all of it. I swallowed. Okay. He exhaled, as if choosing his words carefully. When I became Alpha King, he began, I swore to protect this realm. To put the needs of the territories above my own. To never allow personal ties to influence my judgment. My pulse quickened sharply. And yet, he continued, from the moment I met you, I've been breaking that vow. I blinked slowly, the world tilting under me. Dominic. He stepped closer. You think you're invisible, he said softly. You think you're unimportant. But Era, the opposition you're facing, the danger surrounding you, it isn't because you're weak. It's because you're changing things without realizing it. Changing what? I whispered.
Me, he said simply.
The breath left my lungs. His eyes were steady, but there was something vulnerable in them, something real. Someone tried to end your life, he said, voice thickening. And in that moment, nothing else mattered. Not diplomacy. Not alliances. Not politics. His jaw tightened. Only you. Heat flooded my chest, spreading outward like wildfire. Dominic. I whispered again, but he shook his head. Let me finish. He took another step closer. So close I could feel the warmth radiating from him. Era, he said, voice low and steady. I will protect you. Not because it's my duty. Not because it's expected of me. But because losing you, he exhaled shakily, is something I will not survive. My heart stopped.
Completely.
The air left my lungs in one uneven rush. Dominic, I said, breath trembling. Why would you say something like that? His eyes softened into something devastating. Because it's the truth. Silence enveloped us, thick and fragile. Then he reached out, slowly, giving me time to pull away. I didn't. His fingers brushed my cheek, warm and gentle. You're not invisible here, he murmured. Not to me. Not ever. The world blurred. Not with fear. Not with uncertainty, but with the terrifying, overwhelming realization. I had become someone. Someone who mattered. Someone who could change the fate of kingdoms. And maybe, just maybe, someone he could love. I met his gaze, my voice barely a breath. What do we do now? Dominic's thumb brushed my cheek, slow and tender. Now, he said, we find out who is trying to take you from me. And there was no mistaking it. This was not a king's vow. This was a man's vow. After Dominic's vow, everything felt sharper. My senses, my awareness, even the cold winter air. But so did the danger. Within an hour, Dominic assembled his inner council. Not the political leaders. Not the attending packs. Just his people, the ones he trusted enough to protect me. Kaelin, Theon, Arden, and a woman I hadn't met before. Nyra, Silverrest's intelligence chief, with silver eyes cold enough to freeze a river. Dominic stood at the head of the war room table. I sat beside him, flanked by 2 guards. Every map, every document, every marked territory felt like a looming threat. Nyra spoke first. We found traces of wolfsbane resin in the roof beams where the assassin perched, she said. The amount used suggests they expected Era to die instantly. My stomach twisted. Arden growled softly. Coward's tactic. Nyra ignored him. The assassin carried a thornshade crest, but it was staged. Clumsy. Dominic nodded slowly. So they want to frame Thornshade, not act with them. Or, Theon added with a heavy frown, someone inside Thornshade is acting alone. My mind flashed to Mara, to Rowan,
to the way they had looked at me.
Nyra continued, we also questioned the castle staff. One chambermaid reported seeing a hooded figure entering Era's wing earlier that afternoon. Dominic's gaze sharpened. Describe them. She said he walked with a slight limp and wore reinforced gloves. The kind used by professional killers. A chill spread through me. So the assassin wasn't improvising, Theon said. He was prepared. Trained. Kaelin leaned forward. And, confident enough to believe he could get close to the king's personal guest, Dominic's jaw tightened. Era isn't a guest. She is under my protection. The room fell silent for a moment after his declaration. Nyra cleared her throat. There is one more detail. Dominic's eyes narrowed. Go on. We found a symbol etched under the assassin's sleeve. She unfolded a sketch. A curved sigil. A stylized crescent. And a line of ancient runes beneath it. It looked familiar. Too familiar. I inhaled sharply. I've seen that before. Everyone turned to me. Where? Dominic asked. I hesitated. On a pendant my mother kept. Dominic's entire body stilled. Nyra's expression shifted. Sharp, calculating. Your family had ties to a forgotten faction. I don't know what it means, I whispered. My mother died before she could tell me. Dominic's voice went low. Era, this symbol might be the key to everything. Kaelin leaned back in shock. So, this wasn't just a political strike? Nyra answered instead.
No, she said.
This was personal. My pulse thundered in my ears. Dominic reached for my hand beneath the table, his grip grounding me. We'll find the truth, he murmured. Whatever it is. But deep down, a quiet fear spread through me. Because I could feel it. This wasn't the beginning of a mystery. It was the unraveling of a life I never truly understood. After the meeting, Dominic walked me back to my chambers. Guards shadowed every step, but the hallway felt strangely empty, quiet in a way that pressed against my spine. When we reached my door, Dominic didn't immediately let go of my hand. Era, he said softly, I need to ask you something. My heart tightened. Anything. Your mother's pendant. Do you still have it? I nodded.
Yes.
It's in my travel bag.
His eyes softened.
May I see it? I hesitated. Not because I didn't trust him, but because the pendant was the last piece of my mother I possessed. Her voice, her scent, her laugh, those were all fading memories. But the pendant? That was real. I'll bring it to you tonight, I whispered. He exhaled, relieved. Good. A moment passed between us. quiet but charged. Then his expression darkened, hardening around the edges. "There's something else," he said. "And you're not going to like it." My pulse jumped. "What?" "You're not leaving this wing without an escort." "Not for a moment." "I understand." "And," he added, "you will not attend any gatherings, meetings, or events without me present." I paused. "Dominic, that's not necessary." "Era." He stepped closer. His voice dropped into that deep, commanding timbre that always made the entire court fall silent. "You were hunted, targeted, nearly killed. I will not let that happen again." His intensity stole my breath. "Dominic," I whispered, "I don't want to be a burden." "You're not a burden," he said immediately. "You're the target. There's a difference." I opened my mouth, then closed it again. He noticed. "You don't have to pretend you're fine," he murmured. "You're allowed to be afraid." My throat tightened. "Are you?" His expression shifted, barely, but enough for me to see the truth. "Yes," he said quietly. "I am." I had never heard the king admit fear before. Not once. He lifted his hand, brushing a strand of hair behind my ear. His touch was gentle, but his voice was steel. "I will protect you," he said, "even from the things you've never been told." His fingers lingered on my cheek, warm and steady. "Tonight," he whispered, "bring me the pendant." Then he released me and stepped away, leaving my heart pounding against my ribs. And for the first time, I wondered, what did my mother hide from me? And why were people willing to kill me to find it? Night fell quickly, draping Silverrest in moonlight and shadow. Guards escorted me to Dominic's private study, a room filled with books, maps, and the soft glow of lanterns. Dominic stood near the window, looking out over the silver forests. When he turned to me, his expression softened. "You brought it." I nodded and held out the pendant. It was a small crescent-shaped stone, dark as obsidian, etched with faint, ancient markings. To anyone else, it looked like nothing more than an heirloom. To me, it was everything. Dominic took it gingerly, as if afraid it might break. "May I?" he asked. "Yes." He turned it in his hand, studying every angle. Then he frowned. "There's a seal," he murmured. A seal?" He stepped closer, lifting my hand and placing the pendant in my palm. "Press here," he said, guiding my thumb to a small indentation on the back. I hesitated, then pressed. Click. The sound was soft, but in the silent study, it felt thunderous. The pendant shifted, splitting open. My breath caught. Inside the crescent was a thin piece of folded parchment. Old. Fragile. Hidden for gods know how long. Dominic's eyes widened. "Era, this is a message." My fingers trembled as I unfolded the small parchment. One sentence, written in my mother's handwriting. "If they find you, the moon will weep." A chill crawled up my spine. Dominic took the note gently. His expression darkened, deep, furious, and protective. "Era," he said quietly, "this is a warning." "A warning from who?" "Your mother," he said. "And she was afraid of someone powerful. Someone ancient." My voice shook. "What does it mean?" Dominic looked at the note again, then at me. "It means," he said slowly, "that you were never invisible." My breath stuttered. "You were being hidden." The room spun. Hidden. Not ignored. Not overlooked. Hidden. "Why?" I whispered. Dominic stepped closer, his voice low and steady. "Because there is something inside you," he said, "something your mother protected with her life." His thumb brushed my knuckles, calming, grounding, devastatingly tender. "And now," he added, "someone else has realized it." The pendant lay cold in my hand, and for the first time in my life, I understood. My past wasn't abandoned. It was erased. For my safety. And now the world, dangerous, ruthless, ancient, was remembering me. The night the truth arrived, the moon hung low and silver, as if watching me with ancient eyes. Dominic and I stood in the quiet of his study, the pendant still warm from my touch, the note from my mother lying between us like a whisper from another life. "If they find you, the moon will weep." The words repeated over and over in my mind. Your mother hid the truth for a reason, Dominic murmured, pacing. This isn't a simple threat. This goes deeper. Deeper than a political assassination? I asked softly. His gaze lifted to mine.
Yes.
Much deeper. Before he could continue, Naira burst into the room, breath sharp, expression grim. Your Majesty, Era, we found something. My heart dropped. What? She handed Dominic a parchment. He scanned it, his jaw tightening. When he finished, he passed it to me. It wasn't a message. It was a list.
Names.
My name among them. What is this? I whispered. Naira's voice was low. A death ledger. Created by a faction older than any pack. A group that believes certain bloodlines must never rise again. I stared at the list, my hand trembling. But I'm nobody. Nobody in Thornshade. Nobody anywhere. Dominic stepped close, his voice harsh with emotion. Era, listen to me. You were hidden, not ignored. You were a threat. A threat to the people who fear what you could become. What could I become? Naira exchanged a glance with Dominic. He nodded. Naira spoke carefully. Your mother wasn't just a wolf, Farah. She was part of a lost lineage. A bloodline tied to the Lunaris order. Wolves born under rare convergences who carry immense instinct, healing gifts, and the ability to influence fate. I felt the world tilt. My mother never told me any of this. She couldn't, Dominic said gently. It would have put you in danger. And now someone has discovered who you are. My throat tightened. So the assassin wasn't after just anyone. He was after a Lunaris heir. Naira nodded. And, she added, we found out who hired him. Dominic's voice sharpened like a blade. Say it. Naira met his eyes. Lord Rowan of Thornshade. Silence slammed into the room. My stomach dropped. Rowan. The one who always sneered, who always underestimated me, he wanted me dead? Why? I whispered. Naira continued. Rowan's mother was once promised a Lunaris alliance. She believed that her family would one day carry the power your bloodline possesses. Your existence proves her entire legacy is a lie. And Rowan wanted to erase that shame. My heart pounded painfully. So he tried to kill me because I was born? Dominic's hand closed over mine. You lived, and now he wants to control the fallout. Where is Rowan now? I asked. Naira hesitated. Dominic's voice went deadly. Naira. He's in the council chamber, she admitted, demanding a private audience with the king. The room fell silent. Then Dominic turned to me, his voice low and decisive. You're coming with me. My breath caught. What? This is your truth, he said. Your danger. Your story. And I won't let him speak lies about you in my court. I swallowed hard. Dominic, if Rowan sees me, he'll learn the mistake he made when he thought you were invisible. He held out his hand. I placed mine in his. And together, we walked toward the final confrontation. The council chamber felt colder than usual, wide, echoing, lit by torches that cast long shadows across the marble floor. Rowan stood at the center, flanked by two of his people. His eyes snapped to me the moment we entered. Shock first, then contempt, then fear. You, he stammered. You should be dead. Dominic's growl filled the room like thunder. Choose your next words carefully. Rowan composed himself slowly, his arrogance returning like a mask slipping back into place. I am here, he began, to discuss the assassination attempt and insist that Thornshade is innocent. Naira stepped forward. We found the ledger. And your crest. Rowan's face paled. All forged. Theon entered then, tossing a bundle of papers onto the council table. And the payment trail. Straight from your personal account. The room shifted. Dominic's voice dropped to something terrifying. Why her? Rowan swallowed hard, eyes darting to me. Because she wasn't supposed to exist. The word struck like a blade. Rowan spat on the floor. The Lunaris order died long ago. Her mother should never have passed the bloodline to an unranked pack. It is an insult and an abomination. My voice cut through his rant, steady and surprisingly strong. So you tried to erase me. He glared at me. Your existence threatens everything. The convergence should not fall to a nameless girl. I have a name, I said quietly. It's Era. Dominic turned fully to Rowan. You attempted to kill a Lunaris heir on my land. You tried to murder the woman under my protection. You threatened my realm. Rowan sneered. She means nothing. Before he could finish, Dominic moved. It wasn't violence. It was dominance, pure, unshakable, Alpha King authority. Dominic stepped forward, voice echoing across the chamber. She means everything. Silence fell so hard, it felt like the air vanished. Dominic lifted his chin. Rowan of Thornshade is hereby stripped of rank, land, and title for attempted regicide, conspiracy, and the planned murder of a Lunaris heir. Exile is too merciful. Rowan snarled, lunging. Guards slammed him to the ground. Dominic turned to me then, ignoring Rowan's screams, ignoring the court, ignoring everything but me. Era, he said softly. You decide his fate. The room froze.
Me?
I could barely breathe. Why me? I whispered. Because he wronged you, Dominic replied. Because power shouldn't be built on fear. And because your voice deserves to be heard. My heartbeat steadied. Rowan glared up at me from the floor, sweating, furious, terrified. I stepped closer. You tried to kill me for being born, I said quietly. But I won't become the kind of person you are. His eyes widened. I choose exile, I said. Let him live with what he lost. Dominic nodded once. So it shall be. Guards dragged Rowan away screaming. And just like that, the danger that had shadowed me since I entered Silverrest disappeared into the night. Dominic turned to me slowly. This is your ending, he said softly. You are no longer invisible. No longer hidden. No longer small. I swallowed, emotion burning my throat. What happens now? He stepped closer, brushing his fingers against my cheek. Now, he murmured. Now you stay here. With me. My breath caught. Era, I don't want a throne without you near it. The words hit me like a warm, impossible storm. I'm not royalty, I whispered. No, he said, cupping my face gently. You're something rarer. His forehead rested against mine. You're the girl who walked into a forest to save a stranger. The girl who faced death and protected the man who would die for her. The girl who forced kings into silence. His voice softened to almost nothing. Your Era. And that's enough. The world blurred. Not from fear. Not from uncertainty. But because for the first time in my life I was seen. Truly seen. Dominic's thumb brushed my jaw. Stay, he whispered. I will. I breathed. And when he pulled me into his arms, the moon outside shone brighter. Not weeping, not warning, but blessing the choice I had made. The choice to live. The choice to rise. The choice to love. And that was how my story ended. Not with invisibility, but with a kingdom, a future, and a man who vowed to stand beside me, no matter how dark the night became.